Hello, welcome to Human Tech, a podcast about the intersection between humans and technology. My name is Guthrie. I'm here with Susan. Hello.
Hi, Guthrie.
Hi. So we are doing part 2 of our AI series today. As a refresher, part 1 was sort of about, I don't know, you can call it mundane utility or um, uh, avoiding pitfalls. We called it frivolous uses.
Frivolous use of AI.
Simple and fun. If people haven't listened to the first one, I encourage you to go listen to the first one, but you certainly don't have to. There may be a point at which one of us will have to go run and do a thing and then come back. We could kind of get rid of that with the magic of editing, but it's just less work if we just tell people and apologize.
Don't you have an AI editor?
No, I don't have an AI editor.
I know, I was just being funny. We're trying to be funny. Okay, that wasn't funny.
She's laughing because before getting on, I'm for those maybe with the backdrop, I'm not recording in my normal studio location, and it was just one of those things where there's no reason why stuff shouldn't work, and it just didn't. So
Which made me really happy.
Right, because that often happens to you.
Because I'm usually the one that has the tech stuff going weird, and you're like rolling your eyes.
Yeah. Well, so really briefly, I have a MacBook. I'm recording on my MacBook now. Normally, I record at my Windows desktop.
Yeah.
And I have my same mic, same setup.
Yeah.
It's a USB-C mic, plugs into the USB-C on the Mac.
Yeah.
And it didn't see the mic, even though the mic had power. And so very quickly, what I do is I go and I snag just a different USB-C cable. I mean, I'm using this is like a USB 4 expensive cable. And so it couldn't do it. So I was like, okay, let's just grab a dumb cable. And that seemed to work. So, like it's just one of those things. And then like this, my screen was just like the video was just gone on Restream, which is what we use to record. So anyways, yes. So you making a glib joke about AI,
yeah,
maybe touched a nerve because
I'm sorry.
I was like,
all right, no
humans. The humans were struggling.
No more glib comments.
No. Lots of glib comments. Just not about the
struggling
about the thing that I've been stressing over the last 10 minutes in the moment. How about that?
I'm sorry. That wasn't very human of me. That wasn't very feeling of me. It was much more machine-like.
Oh my
god. Well, it's a good actually. Well, we're not going to talk about this, I don't think, today. But it is a good. If we're talking, because you and I are talking about AI, and we're talking about AI and user experience, right? And AI and behavioral design. I mean,
I'm calling it
talking about AI.
Yes, I'm. So just as a refresher, this is sort of part 2, taking AI seriously, or AI, but for real this time. As a quick summary, we had. As a quick summary, we had wanted to avoid some of the pitfalls about talking about AI.
Yeah.
We had wanted to, a lot of the AI stuff was in very early adopter phase, and we now believe it's sort of moving past that into, actual usable stuff that's a little more polished, and it still has a long ways to go before it has that level of polish. But it can no longer just be dismissed, in my opinion, as just sort of like a shrug, whatever. So,
but I agree with you. Although I would still contend that we're still in a very early phase in terms of designing the user experience of AI when it comes to what the interactions should be like. And for instance, what I was just thinking about before was, because there has been a fair amount of research done, but it's older. I think most of it's older in terms of, do people want AI or robots or machines, whatever, to be human like or not, right? And how human like do you make it? And so I think those are.
If you had it, let's just if you had a butler, a kind of robotic butler, should the butler look like a box?
Right,
Should
or
it
should it
look like a
a
human? Should it look
human?
like a dog?
And
Should it
and
be a
and what
sphere?
and what should the affect of it be, right? Does it talk and act like a helpful human, or does it communicate with you as though it is a machine? And you know, what do people want? What's most effective? How do people react when it's one way or another? I mean, there's a lot of research going on. There's a lot of research that's been going on. In one of my books, Guthrie, I talk about a woman who does research on this, and she would take uh, kind of robotic stuffed animals, and she would have people like hurt them or turn them upside down, and they would, you know, make yelling, squealing noises like they were being hurt. And I mean, it's an interesting question about how humans are going to respond as the AI becomes more sophisticated. And should the AI be more human like, and if so, how does that affect how humans respond? So that's a whole area that, being a psychologist, I'm particularly interested in. And I think that's all. I think that's part. You said before, we think that AI now is, gone past experimentation and is in full adoption mode, and I agree with you on that. But
We're
I think we're
beginning
yeah,
the sort of.
but I think we're really far from knowing what to do about some of these social emotional aspects.
Well, okay. So we yeah, there's just a lot of different ways that we can go. You were talking about social aspects, and that's sort of true across all of it. The sort of uses of AI that we had laid out
Yep,
before. The
yep.
first was stupid entertainment or frivolous. Um,
That's what we did last on
yeah,
our first podcast on the
and
topic.
and
Yep,
a lot of that is going to be in that more social realm, right?
it
So
is.
that's avatars, random experience generators, having an AI make a sort of painting of yourself. Um,
Wait a minute, I have a question for you though.
yeah,
Where do you think? And all right, wait a minute. Before I ask my question, go ahead and say what we're going to talk about in this session if we ever get to it. If I ever stop interrupting you.
yeah. So
Because that
this,
was the first one, was the more, I don't know, entertainment AI, and this one we're going to talk about.
yeah, it's more it's super high end task automation.
Yeah,
So this is AI, but in a function as a maybe AI is more of a tool
a
that
tool for
that someone in their job, mostly. I mean, we're mostly sticking in a
right.
professional sense, could or would use for something.
So all right. So the question I
Presentations, social media posts, code. I mean, I guess coding in some
so
capacity.
the
And
question
just
I have
hold on before you do.
what?
The next one would be AI doing stuff that experts used to do, but the
Yeah,
expert is still involved. And then you sort of have industry replacement and that kind of stuff as we move up the.
right. So where does the like AI pets come in? Like you can buy an AI dog and it's your companion. And it's a little stuffed animal. Where is that in one of our buckets? You don't have to answer now, but you might want to think about that because I think we should talk about that.
Well, is it that in stupid entertainment?
I don't know. It might be industry replacement.
I don't know if it's industry replacement, but that might be. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I guess
we
the
can
question
think
is, well,
about
hold
that.
on.
What?
Okay. So I think we can use these same categories, but for fun. All right. So if you think about, let's start from
Okay.
the top and work down, right?
Yeah.
Instead of, if we think of industry replacement, really we're talking about dog replacement.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Right.
Well, or social companion replacement.
Sure. Right. You're replacing friends,
Right.
partners, pets,
That's right.
living things.
All
Okay.
right.
So
So we're
that's
gonna
so that's
put
at the
that one
top of
in.
the stack, right?
All right. So we'll
And
put
then you
that
would
in
have
before.
it doing stuff that the expert in a business sense or the
Right.
partner or dog or whatever, the animal in the social sense would
Yeah.
do. So this is one step down, but the dog and stuff is still involved. So you could imagine you still have a dog, but you have like
Right.
another dog. It's like a robot dog
To play
that
with your dog.
play with your dog. Or yeah, dogs are kind of dumb.
Do not say dogs are dumb,
No,
or
but
you're gonna.
compared to humans. So like for
We'll
example,
probably get more email about that
this
statement than
podcast
we
is off to
have.
a bad start. We should just start over. Um so okay, but like what I was going to say is like for example, you could have a if we're talking about the number 3 doing the stuff that the expert
Experts used to do.
or
Yeah.
the other social creature used to do, but the creature is still involved. For humans, you could have like a phone app that was a companion, but it doesn't
Right.
mean that you would necessarily replace your wife with the phone, right? They're sort
Right.
of being
Right.
used in conjunction. Dogs are not as smart to use a phone app. So you might not be able to only
Right.
use a software version with a dog to play with
Right.
the dog. You might
Right.
need like a physical
Right.
thing that would run around
That's right.
to, for the dog to play with. Uh, yeah. So yeah. Okay. So yeah. So you totally replace the dog or partner or friend, and then there's the I have a dog partner friend in conjunction with other real
Gotcha.
dogs partners friends, and then one down is um, high end task automation. So I guess that would be. I'm trying to think of it in a dog sense.
You don't have to think of it in a dog sense.
Well, what are things that I would do with a
Well,
dog?
that you mean
I
that
guess
you do with the dog or that the dog does? I mean, you might want to train the dog. You might want to.
okay, here you go. Here you go. I guess if we're talking about in a pet sense,
Yeah.
um, maybe you have a an automatic food
Right.
dispenser.
Right. That feeds the dog.
So you're
Mhm.
doing sort of task automation, or um, if you're doing like a, I know this sounds a little. I mean, now we're getting to social faux pas, but sure. You could imagine an AI that you use with your friends that automatically helps or that assists in scheduling times to have a call, right? Like I
Yeah.
want to have like 2 calls a month with my
Right.
friend out
With my
in
friend.
LA.
Yeah.
So we the two of us are using this AI
This-
app to
Right. To
facilitate a
facilitate the
call.
scheduling and everything. Yeah.
And or maybe even the call, right? So it's like, hey, let's play a game, right?
Right.
Here's a fun new game for you guys to try. So it's like it's sort of you're using AI as that high
Mm.
level task
Yes.
automation. It's sort of
Yeah.
doing some of the things, the logistics of friendship or companionship.
Yeah. I gotcha.
So yeah, so we have made things more complicated, but the end result is that I think you can use our categories either in a work sense, which is how we design them,
Yes.
but
Or
yes, you
in
could
a
use them in a personal,
non-work sense.
in a non-work
Absolutely.
sense.
Yes.
I think it still works.
Okay. All right. So we're on the second one, which is the task automation. whether for work or personal. We've decided. So yeah. So what do you want to? I mean, I think this is becoming quite common now. I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, all I know is the clients we work with, and then my own personal experience. I'm trying to get a sense. Do you have any sense of, how many people in the world, or we could just say the U.S. if you wanted to focus in, are using, are knowingly using AI for task automation? Some of them might be. There might be AI behind the scenes, and they don't even
It
know it.
doesn't
But
matter. That
do you
is
think it's?
a
But do you think it's very common at this
I
point?
don't know, and that's
You don't care.
I refuse to answer because that's one of our pitfalls, which is you can't make
Don't.
assumptions about
All right.
because things are
All
changing
right.
so fast, right? So
That's right. Okay, I like that. That's true.
so
All right, point out the pitfalls.
it's some people, it will be more people.
Right.
So
Right.
so we can, I think it is safe to assume that in the near future it will be many people in many jobs and
Okay.
industries.
Okay.
Okay. Even if that's not today, we can
It'll eventually be
see,
there.
not even eventually, I think fairly
Yeah,
soon.
it's growing rapidly.
There are too many inefficiencies in the workplace that can be automated. That
Do you think
tedium
this is
things.
analogous to, I mean, you you will not have experienced this. I have experienced the transition that occurred in the workplace. I I I, I feel sad saying this. I was in the workplace before there were computers. I know that's hard to imagine how there is a workplace without computers, but
There are many workplaces
there
without computers
was.
still.
And so I experienced that transition. Um, and to me, AI for in the workplace and AI for task automation, I think of it as the same way. It's like, and maybe that's not accurate. I think it'll change things. For instance, if I give an example?
Hmm.
Many, many, many years ago, I worked for the Gillette company, the razor blade people. And next to the department I was, and this was in the John Hancock huge skyscraper tower in Boston. And and next to our department that I worked in was bookkeeping. And bookkeeping was about 50 people. I think they were all women who were sitting at desks with adding machines, which again, you may not know what that is, but it was like a mechanical calculator, and you would punch in numbers and then you'd pull a lever and it would add the numbers up. And that's all they did all day, was use these mechanical calculators to add things up, and then you know add things up, invoices and whatever. um, it was not computerized. And that's the kind of task that people don't do anymore,
Right.
right? It's all done by computers. And I think there's a lot of stuff that we do with computers, or without, but mainly with, that's that is being automated in that way, and we won't do anymore. Or at least will change greatly, like putting together a presentation, or posting, doing marketing, posting on social media, and that kind of thing.
Certainly some job roles and industries more than others, in the same way that the adder, function, which was a job and then sort of isn't necessary. And obviously there's a lot of if you're in development, there's a lot of coding that is quite redundant. They're sort of doing
Right.
kind of the same thing, but it's like a little different each time.
So, Guthrie, what is it you want to focus in on to talk about this part of AI?
Okay. So there's a couple different things. I'm looking at our notes. Let's save some of the UX questions for later, because
Okay.
there's UX in particular.
Right.
I think that one of the interesting places that we can explore is if we're talking about task automation. I think that's a good example, but it's not, it's not gonna be the same in the same way that I'm, the use of the electrical motor changed a lot of task automation as well, but it's not going to be the same as the internet. It's not going to be the same as AI task automation. These are just sort of different things. Um, so for, I said the electric motor, right? There used to be, think of all the clothes washing that was very done by hand. And even you can think about phone routing is maybe another good example, right? That's an electrical thing, but there used to have to be a person who would literally connect your wires from one, which is kind of an amazing system, and that all got automated, right? So you don't have someone who connects the wires anymore.
Right.
So you could envision here, and so let's look at an analogy for that. You could envision right now, I need to schedule a meeting with a stakeholder with one of our clients, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to schedule time, there's usually some sort of admin person or someone who's doing that role. Sometimes it's a UXer who's doing that role. There's a calendar that's automated, but someone still has to create the meeting, invite the people, do the back and forth. Hey, did these times work for you? And the other person says, oh, okay, yeah, that works, but we got to invite so and so, right? And so putting together these meetings is a task that has to happen. It's not necessarily hard, but it does require a little bit of human interaction. You could imagine that if I tell my AI agent, I'd like to schedule a of an hour-long meeting with so and so, and that AI agent communicates with. You can pick a name for this stakeholder, so I can.
Jonathan.
Jonathan communicates with Jonathan's AI agent.
Yeah.
And Jonathan AI's AI agents advocates for him, right?
Yeah.
It knows his calendar. It's like, hey, actually, this week pretty busy. Can we do half an hour, right? So it's not necessarily like you're
just scheduling.
It's not a schedule automator, because we sort of have those where it fills in this place. What needs to be automated is the back and forth of balancing time, of balancing priorities, of, so that's the human aspect that can be further automated. So so Jonathan's agent said, hey, this week actually really busy. How about, Tuesday 3:30 to 4? And then your AI agent says, you know what? That's open on our side. I'll set the thing up, right? And then both people get like the invite and they can click yes, right? Or they can say, actually, go try it again. So that's the sort of task automation that sort of and that's why I called it the number 2, right? AI being used as super high-end task automation. So it's not just task automation in the traditional sense, the way we, I think, traditionally think of task automation when we think, task automation. Like, sending a marketing email over and over again.
Right.
That's a task automation.
Task automation,
I
not
guess.
necessarily AI.
But we're talking really, really high-end task automation.
Yes.
right? So that, setting up the marketing campaign, or doing a lot of the, posting of stuff. Presentations, I think, is a good one. Presentations is one of those things where we can talk briefly about presentations. It could certainly be automated, but do you want it to be automated? Is it like what is the purpose of the presentation? I think a lot of times the purpose of presentations is just to have like two humans like talk to each other and communicate an idea. And it's not necessarily about the idea and the information. It's just about the communication. Does that make any
Yeah.
sense? Does that make
Yeah.
sense to you? I don't know if that makes
Yeah.
sense to our audience, but
But
right,
I
like,
think that uh, AI should and could and does um, parse that out. It's like I'm having, you know, I'm having an hour-long meeting with Jonathan, or half an hour meeting with Jonathan, because that's what his AI said all he could give, and I want to present to him, you know, my thoughts on the future of blah blah blah, and I can, the AI agent can put together at least a draft of a slide deck that I use for that.
so what is the value of you then? And so that this is where this well, no,
That's a
but this
good
is where things get a
question.
little interesting, right? Because
Yeah,
so for example, we have written a lot of blog posts at blog.theteamw.com,
yeah.
which is our blog. We wrote all of those. I mean,
We
we wrote
did.
every
And an
word
AI
over.
agent did not write it.
So you could go a couple different ways. On one hand, if we told an AI agent, "Hey, write a blog post about some UXE something,"
Which many people are doing this.
right? Yeah, 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 sure. And again, we're not going to fall into the fallacy of, well, it's limiting, blah, blah blah. Let's just assume it can do a really really good job,
Yeah,
maybe even better than we could do.
then we could.
But it doesn't necessarily matter because it's an AI saying it. It's like
Yeah,
it's like um, it's like looking up user experience. Well, that's not popular enough. It's like looking up programming or something, or World War II history in an encyclopedia.
yeah.
Which think it's like it's really like you can do it, but part of the value is having the human's opinion about it. I mean, this is like the whole podcast thing. This is the idea of content. It's not
Well, okay.
necessarily just about the content. It's about, hey,
Okay.
I want this person's opinion. Well,
So,
just
right.
hold on. Just let me finish this thought. So, so we wrote those blog posts, right? Those are our words. And
Yeah.
so then to have an AI something craft, we'll say a summary or presentation based on it, that's one thing. You could envision an AI coming up with a presentation by itself that would be very good about but the budget for Q1, or whatever this meeting with Jonathan is, supposed to be about, right? And so yes, you could have just like an AI thing that's like, oh, it's a great presentation about Q1. And it doesn't mean it has to be dry, right? AI can write stuff that's funny or charming or quirky, or it could be all kinds of stuff, different stuff. But it's not you saying it, right?
That's right.
It's the AI saying it. And so
Right.
but you could envision you sitting down and saying, "Okay, Q1, you know, here are my thoughts. We're doing pretty good, but I'm worried about this and this and this and this, but we can't talk about this because that's a touchy subject and that's a pet project. So just sort of say that this is good and wrap it into something else, right? And then and also here are like my 10 emails or 10 other, presentations about similar things. And based on that background, your AI agent would come up with something, right? that presentation, you didn't craft it, right? But the value is not necessarily the presentation, it's the human's opinion being wrapped up in it. And I do think that that is a pretty big that's sort of where I want to explore, which is yes, it's advanced task automation, but what is it that we're automating, and what's still the value in it? Is it just the presentation? Is it just the facts? Is it that it's persuasive, or is it the fact that I'm saying something? And that's what matters, is my opinion, because I work, at so and so. I'm in charge of this or that. Does that make sense?
Well,
That
yeah,
distinction?
yes, but I think it raises other questions. For instance, you could, if you have people that work for you, right? It doesn't have to be an AI agent. You could turn to
Sure.
Max and say, I can you put together a presentation for me? I got this meeting with Jonathan, and here's what I'm thinking. I mean, it's still your thoughts and opinions. You're just giving it to someone else to work it up, and I don't know that that's different than what AI automation would be in that regard.
It's
Um,
not. I think that's a perfect example. But that's what that high-end task automation is. That is number two. That is what we're talking about replacing.
yeah,
In the same way that you have like social media manager, right?
right,
Here the marketing has come up with the all the posts, but it
right.
does take at the moment sort of a a grunt, for better, for no, not a
It
better
does
term,
to
to
get
log into the accounts, to put the post
schedule the
together, to
posts.
type it up, to do the hashtags, to at whoever, right, to
Yeah,
schedule and press the send button, right?
yeah,
That can be automated. Yeah.
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 But although I think so. A couple interesting things. I think there is an interesting line that maybe isn't totally clear between just automating versus AI automating, because I think, as you said, right, we're not just talking about automating tasks, but we're talking about automating tasks with a certain amount of intelligence behind it and decision making behind it, and um, so I think that's slightly different. Um, but I think it is a really interesting question about, you said, oh, but the human's opinion is important. Well, maybe not. Like, where's that line? So, you know, the AI maybe could come up with better ideas than the human could. So what do you do with that?
Well, come up with
Why
better
is the human
ideas.
why is the human I mean, I get to the point where it's kind of like, oh, well, maybe the human doesn't need to be involved at all. But then you get into a very interesting question about why are we doing any of this? Why are we doing these
Well, that's
presentations
now,
or
now
these
we're getting
meetings
to
or these?
three. Now we're getting to 3 and 4. So
No, I
we're
don't
gonna
know
have
if
to
we
save
are,
three and
but
four.
okay, okay, all right, maybe.
Well, that's this
I,
human replacement.
but I think it's an interesting question about how useful is is the AI automation, and what does it need to do in order to be useful and worthwhile. And I think you do. I think actually, though, Guthrie, inherently, and we won't get into it this time. We'll get into it next time. But I think that line between what we're calling 2 and 3, right, which is the line between automating tasks with AI versus somewhat replacing an expert. I think that's a fuzzy. That could be a fuzzy line. That could be a fuzzy line because, you know, if the AI automation is going to be useful, how useful can it be if it's kind of dumb AI automation? Maybe then it's not AI automation. Maybe it's just automation. I don't know. I think that's a and if we are. Yeah, it's okay. So here's something that's interesting because we're talking about the next one that we're not talking about yet, but we keep talking about is expert replacement or partial replacement. But are we saying with number 2, just regular AI automation, aren't we saying that some people who aren't experts, who are assistants, they are expendable? We don't need them
Well,
because
I
the
think
AI
I
will do it
think I
instead.
think
Like
the
it's
point of this whole thing is that everyone is expendable, and eventually, because we're working our way up, right? Where it's small and frivolous, so it's like
well,
whatever. It doesn't really harm a whole lot of people. And then it's this one, which is like if you're like an intern, a social media intern, right? Well,
right.
your
Forget
job
that.
is now gone. And
Right,
then eventually we
right.
get to experts. It's like, well,
And maybe their
why?
job
Well,
is
we really
done.
don't need a whole lot of programmers because like with
Right,
this thing can write the program for us, or you just vibe code or whatever.
right,
And then
right.
eventually, and now you get to like, well, we really don't need any UXers at all
So we
because
are
we just
so
press the
definitely
button and it
alright.
just creates the.
So
So yeah, so as we move up, like
alright, so we are
there's more and
talking
more problems
at level
and
2, we are talking about, uh,
level two,
level 2, we are
level two.
talking about replacing things that replacing people or replacing things that people do with AI automation. I just wanna make that clear because it could be.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
it
No. There.
part
No
of
doubt. At each time you take a step up this staircase, a bunch of people and industries are thrown
out
out
of
of
a
work
job
and destroyed, and it's
because
like a whole disaster.
okay, all right. Well, I just wanted to make that clear because well,
Yeah.
because there is some level at which if I use an AI automation tool, I'm making myself more efficient. I'm taking some things that are boring and take a lot of time and then I don't have to do them anymore because there's a lot of people in the world that don't have assistants. So they're using AI as
Right.
their assistant.
We don't
But
have assistants.
you're kind of my assistant. I'm not. I don't. I'm sometimes I'm
Sure.
your assistant, but yeah, we don't have assistants. So, but okay, all right. I just wanted to clarify that. I just want to clarify that for in some cases it might be making someone more efficient. In other cases, it might be eliminating a job.
But
So,
that's the same thing. That's the
yeah,
same thing.
I got it.
Is it
Well,
just whether someone is already paying for
for
that
doing it or not.
assistance? You know, like we could have a admin person on staff. We could be paying an admin person
Yeah,
to do a bunch of admin tasks. Would that free us up for
for
more
other things.
productive activities? Absolutely.
Yeah,
You know, and so if we are using an AI to automate some of that,
yeah,
we right now we are having a productivity multiplier, and
right,
that wouldn't stop us necessarily from also having an assistant. It would be even
right,
like the calculus may be exactly the same. It may not change whether or
right.
not it's worth it for us to hire someone to be an admin for us, whether or not we get an AI assistant, but it's another option in the same way that like I'll give a great example. Think about the classic flipping burgers at a
Yeah,
fast food restaurant. Okay,
yeah,
you got someone who is working at a very low wage in a fast food restaurant, quote
yeah.
unquote, flipping burgers. Now it's a little more high tech if
Mm.
you've ever seen the back of a fast food restaurant these days,
Yeah,
but the burgers are on the thing, and someone has to flip them to the other side and put them in a
right,
box. The it is, you could think of a, Burger King, McDonald's or something, investing in state of the art robotics
right,
and replacing the people who flip the burgers with a burger flipping machine. And in some ways they kind of do that a little bit in the fast food restaurants to, speed things up. But one of the big things is actually cheaper, especially in the United States, to just pay someone functionally nothing, very little, to do that kind of work. Or another version could be, I could, there are two companies. If I want to like dig a ditch or put in a new something, right?
Yeah.
If it's a small ditch, if it's just like a little thing, it would be more efficient if they had an advanced kind of, digging machine, rototiller
Right.
something. But sometimes it's actually just cheaper just to have two guys with shovels. If it's not, if
Right.
it's not
Right.
right. So in the same capacity, uh, there's some things that everything probably can be automated, but right now it's actually cheaper to have a human being
Human do it.
just do it because we're actually pretty good at that kind of thing of we need to get thing from part place A to part place B, and it's not, it's going to be a little different each time. So it's just easier just to have a human to do those kind of tasks. When where there might be a technical solution to it, but it just might be really expensive. So AI perhaps brings some of those barriers down, brings down the
Right.
cost.
Right.
So there are still some things that maybe it's cheaper or better to have an assistant do. Um, we'll think of like the movie theater executive assistant, right? I gotta get my coffee in the morning. I need it this way. You could have an AI agent that orders the coffee and has it delivered
Yeah.
for you, right? It's not the same as, oh, I gotta run, and like your assistant, runs up with a cup of
Right.
coffee as you get
Right.
into the car. It's just different. It's just different, and it doesn't, So, okay, so, but for a lot of tasks, AI agents are bringing down the price of this kind of automation.
But I think right now people are struggling. Well, not struggling. I think obviously there's a lot of interest in it. Obviously there are a lot of tools coming out every day to do this kind of task automation. But I think it's a mental model shift, and I don't think it's clear to a lot of people yet how to best do this for
And
them,
I
for
think
their
the
role.
problem is that the workplace often lies about what it is that people are doing. So, for example, a lot of meetings, this, that we've talked about this before. When people say, hey, we want a meeting, what they really want is a presentation. A meeting is when multiple people are talking and you're having sort of a discussion. A lot of meetings are just presentations where someone is standing up with maybe like a slide deck, click, 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 here's my report. So they're saying we're having a meeting. That's the term that's used, but really it's a presentation. And
But
so,
yeah,
for
how do you think
example,
that affects the AI automation?
just wait a second. So, for example, we talked about presentations earlier, right?
Yep.
A lot of times presentations, it's like the presentation is like update on Q1 finances or something, right?
Right.
Nominally it's an update about the details in the presentation, but as well as I do, and probably most people listening, most meetings aren't about the stupid thing in the deck. If it was just about the information in the deck, you just
It's
email the
send the
deck
deck.
over, right? The value of the meeting is the conversation that happens
Mm,
when you get the people in the room and you're
mm,
talking about the numbers. Like, right? Like
mm.
the you could, if you want, if it was actually about the update, put it in a one-page PDF with a chart and put it in an email, and you don't need to have the meeting. But everyone has the meeting because it's not actually about the update. That's like a social
Well, yes and
convention.
no. Yes and no. I agree with you. I absolutely
Sometimes
agree
it
with you.
is just about the update.
Sometimes it's just a lot of it is just about attention, because if
That's
I
true.
send it to you in with the PDF, you're not going to open it
Right.
and read it.
Whereas if I've trapped you in
In
the
the
room,
meeting,
in the
I
meeting
might
room,
not have your full attention, but at least I
you
got
are a
this much,
prisoner.
and you got you paid attention for 5 minutes. Yeah. So I
And you
think
can
that
ask questions, right? You can ask
that's
questions
right.
that in
And you
a
can argue, and you can have
yeah.
the two
But
people who
the
always
thing about the
argue
thing about AI
glibly.
agents is it's very important to tell it what you want,
Well,
right?
yeah, I know.
No, right? But like the difference between the people who are very productive with either the current state of
I
AI and
know.
the
I know.
people who are not is
I know.
how well of a prompt
Well, so
can you do?
and I think so. So this is interesting. Okay, let's talk about this for a minute. The whole thing about how important the prompt is has exposed, I think, how our own interesting, somewhat convoluted thought processes, and um, there was so the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency in the U.S., does a lot of research, a lot of which, believe it or not, is open to the public because it's paid for by the U.S. taxpayers. One doesn't think of the CIA as being open with their research results, but they are in many cases. And I remember a long time ago reading a very interesting CIA research study about what it's like to elicit information from experts. And they went into the whole problem with this and how hard this is to do because people, especially experts, are not aware of their own thought processes and they don't necessarily communicate really well. And when you ask someone, "Oh, what do you want?" or "Tell me about this," people start filtering what they really know, and what comes out is not necessarily accurate or helpful or clear. So I think this whole thing about prompting and how you have to know how to communicate and converse with the AI agent is interesting because I think it shows how odd and unusual our thoughts are. And you know because I've talked about it a lot, and you've heard me probably too many times talk about this in presentations, that a lot of our mental processing is unconscious. And
No.
so when you talk to an AI agent, you have to be it's conscious. It's not unconscious thinking, it's conscious uh, you know interaction. And we're not particularly good at succinctly summarizing what we're thinking or what we want.
And so sometimes we just want to be heard, you know? Like, right? So
Yes.
like you like I'm gonna call customer service because I had a bad time on a trip, and I want a small portion refunded about a something. But really, what you want is you want to yell at someone, or you want to complain about
Right,
something, or
right,
like
right, right.
you feel you just have to be you just you have to be heard in some
But we're
capacity.
not. So the interesting thing is, we're not logical all the time
Right.
about
Right.
how we
Exactly.
communicate because we are humans. We're not
But we don't
AI.
know. We our self story is not that we are a complainer,
That's right.
and yet
And yet it
we
comes out
want this meeting so that we can
and
complain
complain.
about stuff. you know, like so. For example, envision a situation where the company has taken a direction and it affects your department. Okay. Or it affects you spent months working on a project and the company decides they're not going to move forward with it or something. Um, and you're very passionate about it. There's two
Yeah.
scenarios. One is like you have a meeting and you passionately defend the thing that you're passionate about. And the
Yeah.
other is you send like a one page, logical argument about why here's like the net value of the thing you're doing, and this is why you should go with the other direction. And so imagine it's the same outcome where they kind of give you like a little bit, sort of a halfway measure where you don't kind of get your full thing, but they kind of throw you a bone or something. It would be, I just feel like if you sent like a little like one page whatever that AI generated and you got your logical argument has some validity, so we have decided to increase your budget by 15%, versus like you go and you like passionately defend this thing in front of the CTO for whatever, why your department should exist, and you're like, well, okay, we're going to increase it by 15%. I just like but people, I don't think people have the mental model, or they don't have the conscious awareness that the meeting is actually about this. And in the same way, a lot of stuff when it comes to communication is we need a monthly meeting with sales. We don't actually care about the sales numbers, but we just need to be in the same room as these other people so that they remember our department exists. So we have those relationships. That's the value of the meeting. And it's nominally about the sales update, but really it's just about being in the same room. And it would be the same as if we had a pizza party, or it'd be the same as if we just, played a video game or something. like
All right.
like
So
we just need that connection.
all right. I have questions.
So people, you can automate stuff, but it does expose some of the uncomfortable human truths that we often lie about.
That's right.
In the as our underlying motivation. I'll give you one last one, and then you can ask your questions.
Okay.
There's a weekly or like a monthly meeting or a weekly meeting or something with someone in another department, ostensibly about this or that, and you like it because you're attracted to the other person. You're looking for like an excuse to hang out in some capacity. So if all the meetings are set up by AI agents, right? Like where does that, like how do you navigate those waters? I don't know.
So do you think the use of, AI for task automation that then requires this level of insight and honesty, do you think we'll get better at that? We'll start becoming more aware of what it is we really mean and why and so on.
Let me give you a better example.
Or do
I
you
just thought
think
of a better one.
All right, but do you think it will be delayed in the speed in which we can automate because of this?
So let's just say we have agents that automate the meeting requests, okay?
Yeah.
And there is someone who you do not like at your company who is constantly badgering you for stuff. And in the real world, in the current environment, you could be like, "Oh, I'm busy. I can only have time for like one meeting a month," right? Your AI agent doesn't know that, and so they just keep setting up meetings with this person. Do you have to tell your AI agent, "Hey, I really don't like this person. Like, can we just not do a meeting
why do
with
we
them?"
think you would whisper it?
But like, why? Like, they're always setting time
I
up.
know.
Like, they're on my bad list. I don't want to be in a meeting with them.
Or do you have to
Like, you're gonna have to tell your agent this.
I know, but that's interesting. Can you just say it that way because that's how you really feel, or are you going to have to do a translation? Okay,
Right.
I need to tell right. It's not so. This is an
Or
interesting.
another one. We're talking about social media, right? Shoes, right? We're using AI agents to automate, some sort of picture or something, right? And there's someone who decides on like what the best pictures are to use. And like in the current environment, they know that like it's like hot women, that are
Right.
dressed in a certain way that is sort of happens to be. It's like it's I mean there's a this is like a if you've worked in the restaurant industry, you'll know this is correct. There are certain restaurants where, all the bartenders or all the wait staff just happen to be attractive young women. Just as just I'm randomly pulling resumes off the top, right? Of
Right.
course not,
Right.
right? There's a guy who's the manager who is either in a sort of more gross way wants to be around these women, or in a maybe more fiscally savvy way knows that if you happen to have a lot of young attractive women, you might have some happier male clientele of various stripes. um so like it's either logic and financial, or it's whatever. But like that's the end result is there's a person either in marketing or in sales
Yeah.
um or in the restaurant industry, or any of the visually facing stuff, where someone is putting their finger on the scale to bump up the attractiveness in some capacity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you have AI automating this, I mean, you can couch it in like, hey, like analyze who the best performing pictures are or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Right? Like how now we're putting sort of the uncomfortable social truths, or sort of like the, you know, we don't really talk about it, but that's the actual reason behind stuff.
Yeah.
Now you have to write it down. You're
Right.
sort of,
Right. I
you
know
know,
all the things. All the things. Yeah. So that's that's
you
going to
give
make
it to
things
an AI
interesting.
agent and you say only use the models in our photo shoots that have the best, um, like the best analytics for our marketing campaign, right? And
Yeah.
let's just imagine that it's only young, attractive white women.
Right.
So is that like, right? So do you have to like tell your AI agent,
Right.
you know, don't so it's like, okay, don't actually use the best performing models for things. We actually have to use a diversity of models with some different types of diversity in some capacity, and here's the criteria for that. Like suddenly before it was sort of like this
Right.
gray
Right.
area
Right. And
thing.
now it's not
Now
great.
you have to like write out these very
I know.
awkward
I
policies.
know. I know. So I think that's going to be I think that's an interesting challenge for this level. I do.
um yes, I think that'll be a difficult challenge. I think there's a lot of potential growth here, obviously, but it will be a challenge. Do you want to spend just a couple minutes talking about this level and UX?
Well, okay.
Or do you want to
Uh,
save that for somewhere else?
I'll do it in. Can I do it in 1 minute?
Yeah, I mean, we could maybe. I mean, part of the UX stuff, it kind of, it's not like we need to discuss UX in just this level, and then it's sort of a
Yeah.
broader
Yeah.
UX replacement thing.
But I think some of the things we've just been talking about are UX. Do have to do with the user experience. To me, if it has to do with humans and how they think and how we communicate with the AI agent, then we are talking about the UX. And I think this whole question about, the prompts and getting the prompts right, that is I think that's a UX thing. And also, I think, the whole mental model of how this is and how do I, you know, how do I it is a UX thing. The whole tension between um, how do I communicate correctly to this AI agent in a way that doesn't make me look bad to myself is a UX thing.
Yeah.
Those are all UX things. But if we want to think about it more narrowly, just in terms of
Task
the
automation in UX.
in UX and the design of it, I think I think it's like everything. It's I've seen so many cycles when there's a new technology that's introduced. And then if you think about it from the UX point of view, the initial thing is, oh, well, no big deal. Doesn't really change anything, but it does. And, um, the whole, how the agent converses back, what does the user have to do? It's all, I think it's all important. And I think for the most part right now, most of it is getting ignored. It's kind of like, oh, well, there's no special UX stuff you have to worry about. Just do it. And I don't think that's accurate. So, um, and or it's, well, it's just words. So there's no UX part of it because it's just words. You type words and it types words back, and so nothing UX there. I certainly think, yeah, maybe from a UI point of view, it's simpler, but I still think there's a lot that has not been conquered yet or explored yet around the how good the user experience is on using these agents. I mean, I've been using some of these automation agents. I think the UX of them,
Well,
the
again, I
ones I've been
assume
using,
it'll
are bad.
change. Yeah, they're bad now. It'll probably change.
Maybe.
Well, okay, but let's talk about automation in the UX industry. There's a lot of tasks.
Oh, okay. That's what you
Yeah,
want
yeah,
to talk
yeah.
about.
That's us. Yeah, sorry. I mean, what you
Yeah,
said was
yeah,
important too, but I want, there's a lot of tasks that could probably be fairly automated. What's funny is that I feel like the biggest growth in UX, I mean, there's been growth across the board, but what the biggest one has been in the higher fidelity stuff and a lot of the Figma prototyping.
yeah.
And ironically enough, that's probably the stuff that's easiest to automate.
Yes,
So
agreed.
it's funny because the biggest growth in UX
Right.
has been on the part of UX that
That actually designs the screens.
designs the screens, and that's the easiest to automate in a lot of ways. I think that's my instinct.
I
Is
think that for me, some of the most interesting stuff, though, has to do with automating the part of UX that's not. I agree with what you just said.
yeah, that's not
But,
UX because there's a lot of UX that's not UX,
well, there's a lot. There's a lot of UX that's not UI.
but also not UX. So, for example, if you're a UX researcher, you spend a
Yes.
ton of time scheduling Zoom
Well, not only
interviews,
that, but collating data and
collating
analyzing
data,
data.
right?
And UX design, high level UX design, is the same thing. We've seen some instances, Guthrie, of using AI agents to do some of those high level, object modeling, and they're not perfect, but it's not perfect when humans do it either. So I think that there's a lot. I think there's a lot that AI automation can do for UX. I don't see. I'm sure there are people out there doing it. I know people who are doing it a little bit. I'm doing it a little bit. I don't think it's widespread yet. I think there's maybe some resistance to it. And it's not always exactly clear how to automate it, but I think there's an okay, here's the thing.
The
I think there's
potential,
a lot.
it's actually, I think it's actually, compared to a lot of industries, I think the high, really advanced automation is actually pretty straightforward, in my opinion,
Okay, but
because you have a lot of inputs, right? So if we're talking about information architecture,
yeah.
if you do that sort of base information architecture work, and you have you have all the screens or the list of the screens in some capacity, right? Why couldn't you take that and you
I,
say, "Hey, make it look like
I'm
apple.com," and you
I'm
press the button?
well, because then you'll get in copyright trouble. But I agree with you. But here's the thing. I had a conversation with a client recently who said that they are going through and looking at doing task automation throughout the entire company. They have a team that goes department by department and helps that each department figure out how to start doing AI automation in their work. And I said, "Oh, how about the UX team?" Oh, well, they're going to be at the bottom of the list for the team to come in and help them and get it going. And I'm like, "Why is that?" And the answer was because there aren't very many of them, and it doesn't have an immediate huge impact on the
That's hilarious.
profitability of the company.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. AI, UX is always relegated
Now
to
the
like the back
sales team,
burner.
get the
The
sales team
sales team on
automated,
the
get
get the
the
development tools.
programming,
Yeah,
get the
hilarious,
marketing automated. But
hilarious.
UX, yeah, we'll get to them. They're at the bottom of the list.
We're
I thought
like
that was interesting.
we're like the plumbers of the business world. It's just, we're really important, but
Not that
completely in
important,
the background.
actually. Yeah. So
Um,
I
no,
think
plumbers
it's
are probably way more important than
I
UX
think
actually.
it's I think I think the push for it is coming from the UX people themselves who are interested in it. I think not
Yeah,
from the
because from a line
corporation.
item, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
but
my take on it.
but right. So imagine, I mean, eventually
Eventually it'll get there.
we will get to design systems
Yes.
winning, where forget about the copyright thing. You can tell it, make it look like Apple, but don't have it on the other side of a copyright lawsuit. Okay, whatever. Or pick whatever, Nike.com. Like it's just like a generic e-commerce. Like there's
Yeah.
so many websites that look like all the other websites with just a little different. So you have, right? Here are the pages that we want. Here are the categories in the pages. Have the AI agent generate a draft of for the UX writing, like do all the writing. Here's our color scheme. Here's our logo. Here's anything else we want to add. Come
Yeah.
up with 10 prototypes of the site. Make it live, right? So I can click through all of it.
Yeah.
And you press the button. I don't think what that's super easy to do.
Yeah.
I think that is it's right there. I mean, that's not, some of the stuff with the AI agents, like a pet, like a robot dog that is like your, whatever. Like that's like, I feel like that's harder to do than to just prototype a piece of software that has your stupid website layout on it.
Right.
So, okay, so where does that leave UX then? Well, you still have to test it with users. You'd still have to, usability of testing of some sort. You'd still have to review it, I suppose, for UX writing. You still have to
Oh,
make sure all
what?
the
Well, no. I'm this is all about level 3.
right. But I'm just sticking at just level 2, right? So now you have these UX experts who are reviewing this automation that would traditionally be done by mid or lower level kind of UX staff that can potentially be automated.
Yeah.
So okay, imagine a website with a new product that's launching, right?
Yeah.
Well, right now you'd have to have a UX someone mock up the whatever
Yeah.
or work on the design. I don't, if you just say make it like this, but like
Right.
it's a little different because it's a different product page, and then it just happens.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I think it's going to happen.
Yeah. All right. So I guess we'll wrap up. We had some trouble with number 2. I feel.
Especially at the beginning.
Yeah. So the first episode went really well. This one we ran into some. We had some troubles finding our bearings. So, I feel like level 3 will be easier for us to talk about.
We thought level 2 would be easier, so I guess we're gonna have to see whether level 3 really is easier.
Level 2 was too broad. But level
Maybe.
3 is a little simpler. What's an expert?
Maybe.
What does an expert give?
We'll
What does an
see.
expert provide? So our takeaways for level 2.
Yeah. What are they?
We'll have to do our takeaways are there will probably be lots of disruptions.
Yeah.
Sticking point is going to be what actually is the value of the things that you're automating? What do you actually want the outcomes to be?
Yeah.
And you know, that may be sort of a sticky point because now you have to write down a lot of the things that are maybe left unsaid.
That are so far hidden. Yep. Yep.
And
I think that's a really interesting one.
And in some professions, it makes people more productive. In some professions, it gets rid of a lot of jobs for level 2. So level 2 is sort of coming now? Question mark?
Yeah, it is.
Are we sort of in the beginnings of level 2?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So that's I mean, what the last thing I'll say about level 2 is that it does make getting like if you're an expert in a field, you didn't start as an expert. You have to go. You started as a junior, and you become mid, and then you eventually become an expert. How can you become a junior UXer in a world where all the UX stuff is the baseline stuff is automated? How do you become how do you get into programming?
Right.
If all the basic programming stuff is automated.
Right.
How do you become, it goes on and on and on. So if you automate all this lower level stuff, how, marketing, right? How do you become a high level marketing something if all of the introductory marketing campaign work that used to exist doesn't exist anymore? I know a lot of people who are graduating from college are really smart and they're really struggling because every job is like, we need 7 years experience.
Right.
And if it's less, it's like the burger flipping problem, where the burger flipping machine has now gotten cheap enough that we just don't need the junior person to flip burgers. We're moving up the chain. And so I think that is one of the very unfortunate things, is that if you are a young person trying to break it into an industry, it may be especially hard as we move into level 2. Because that's sort of where we're at right now. And so a lot of the junior positions just don't exist because that work no longer exists.
Right. Yep. I think it's going to be a disruptor.
Of course. All right. Anything else you want to add?
No, that's it. That's good.
Okay. All right. We'll try and do we'll try to do it.
Level 3 next time.
We'll do level 3 next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.